So we're at probate court.
All right, thank you all. I'm Marion Kromkowski, Judge Kromkowski, and our probate register, Chris Mattis. We're asking for an increase for our deputy probate register position from 35 hours to 56 hours. We understand that the accounting, well, from the accounting department, that with the extras added on and taking into account 2 wage increases that would occur, one automatically and one after the 1-year anniversary for our current employee, this would amount to an increase in our budget of $16,519. We are prepared to offer a reduced request for our court-appointed attorney budget in probate and family court, which would amount to an $8,000 reduction in our budget. $6,000 from the family court appointed attorneys and $2,000 from probate court appointed attorneys. Last year, we didn't use all of the $56,000 that was provided for court appointed counsel. It was close, but it was around $52,000. This year, with COVID, I mean, things are a little hard to judge where we're going to end up, but I'm absolutely sure we'll still be under budget, as with the Zoom hearings, we're not paying for mileage. And that, depends on where you're coming from. It's 57 cents a mile. So that already is a reduction that will, and as of right now, currently, we're way under budget with the attorneys just because of COVID and things have really slowed down. So that kind of leaves us asking for an additional $8,519 if you think the removal of the $8,000 from elsewhere would be acceptable. So that's where we are. I'd like to turn it over to Chris Mattis to provide the justification for the increase in hours, if that's okay.
Hello, everyone. There still continues to be a backlog, even though we've made a lot of headway. I started in December, but I officially probably didn't take over until January after our last probate register. A year ago, we had 142 probate cases that were deficient over 182 days, and today we only have 7, and that's due to a lot of hard work. And I'm working on those 7 currently, trying to get those moved off that deficiency list.
Could you repeat what you just said,
Sure.
700 a year ago and now?
So a year ago,
Chris, you can take your
is that
mask
okay?
off while you're speaking because
Okay.
it makes it so hard to understand.
it does, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so a year ago we had, a year ago from now, we had 142 probate cases that were deficient over 182 days.
Meaning the reports were in late. Okay.
Yeah, they actually, we had not even received the reports or, and had not been entered. As of today, we only have 7, which I'm very happy to report. And that was due to a lot of hard work. I do have the reports here. Our deputy probate register is trained and becoming experienced in changing venues of files, as well as noticing paper date hearings to allow accounts. So with a fiduciary, such as a conservatorship, every 3 years, the accounts are supposed to be allowed. We set a paper date hearing, which no one attends but the judge, unless there's an objection. And then the judge reviews those and would allow or deny those accounts. So more than 27 case files have been transferred to other counties since the beginning of this year, and we continue to transfer cases as we discovered their existence. So unfortunately, there's a huge backlog on cases that do not belong in our county any longer, such as the, I have one where the ward has lived downstate for 3 years, things such as that, or they've moved to Grand Traverse, and there's some reason that the cases need to be transferred to that venue. Additionally, over 34 paper date hearings have been held so far this year. This is to approve a backlog of over 71 accountings. And these are, I don't know if these numbers mean much to all of you, but these are huge numbers. And those are for conservatorship cases and guardianship cases. The guardianship cases are the ones that are of the developmentally disabled that are over the estate, the finances. As well, our deputy provides the court recording for our hearings 2.5 days a week, because that's currently what she's working. It would be nice if she could cover 4 days a week, which would allow me more time to work on paperwork and our backlog and files. Just last Friday, because she was out on Friday, I spent 2 hours at the window. Actually, I think it was last Friday, sorry, or Thursday. I spent 2 hours at the window in 2 different conferences. One I had set up for a gentleman that was past due on his accountings by, I think it was 6 reports, or 6 annual accounts, which should never get to that point. So I spent a long time with him, but we also had another gentleman that walked in for a decedent's estate that I had to attend to and answer questions and provide paperwork. It would just be helpful even having, I enjoy having Rachel at the front counter because she can kind of, greet people, catch the phone, catch anyone that walks in, so it doesn't take me away from what I'm doing and working on the files. I also want to mention that earlier last week, I spent hours going through approximately 3 pages of reports, pulling files and correcting the entries in our court system. And this was due to the inventories had been waived at the initial hearing, and some of them were years ago, but they were not entered correctly in the system. So they were showing up on a report that needed to be fixed. If provided that our deputy was here more than 2.5 days a week, I would like to train her in additional tasks that would lighten my current caseload. I'd like to train her in doing things such as the weekly deficiency notices, notice of duties that go out weekly, as well as the monthly pre-notices, and those take a lot of time. We provide the forms to each guardian and conservator as to what they need to fill out so that they can turn it back in. In the past years, we had not been providing those forms to them, and often what would happen is they would forget, so we wouldn't get anything back in. I'd also like to start training her in emergency mental illness cases and just being able to process each different type of case that we do from start to finish. And it's very difficult to do so when, we're pulled. She's only here part-time, so she can't really finish the full process of, like a mental illness case. It's very time sensitive and everything has to happen within 7 days. So, and also eventually I would like to take vacation more than 1 day at a time. That would be nice eventually to do, and just know that I have a backup. Currently, we have over 1,270 wills in safekeeping since the late 1970s. When I started,
1,200 and what?
1,270 wills for safekeeping. When I started with Leelanau Probate, I discovered that all of those wills were listed in our system as public access files. Those are supposed to be suppressed files. If someone calls up or walks in the front door, if they ask, do you have, a file or a will on file for Jane Doe, you should be, you should be saying, no, I don't have any records, because those are suppressed. We don't tell anyone about what's filed with us. That was a large project that took approximately 30 to 40 hours to complete. It was over 25 boxes that had to be pulled. The numbers had to be changed. Each and every one of them had to be changed to suppressed from a public file. But I also recently discovered that none of those wills in safekeeping have been compared with the clerk's death records. So we likely have many in safekeeping that don't need to be there. Once an individual passes away, that will that was in safekeeping is pulled out and put into a will for deceased. We basically, it's going to be another large project to go through all that. We're also requesting $3,500 for a fireproof filing cabinet to store the remaining wills that we have that are in safekeeping. By law, this is a storage requirement. This was a necessity that was not provided in the past. So, and I just wanted to mention, I love my job. I love being here. It can be a difficult task to stay on top of all the pleadings that are coming in, especially now that they come in by email, by fax, not just mail or the front door. Especially difficult when we have a backlog, that I'm currently trying to get past. But most days, you can ask Michelle or Jen. Most days, my card is still here. I'm still here often in the evenings. So it would be nice to have extra additional help and the hours added. So thank you for your consideration.
Commissioner Ansel.
Okay, I understand, you still have a backlog.
Yeah.
How much of, when you got the extra half person, how much have we whittled away the backlog? Are we halfway through? Are we 10% through? Are we 90% through? Just give me a rough guess.
Maybe Chris can answer, but in addition to the backlog, we're now realizing that more work should have been done on these cases.
That's what I'm trying to get my arms around.
So the backlog, we have the will backlog,
Yep.
the death records. We have, the delinquent accounts. I think we're catching up though, from 1 to 7.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing accomplishment.
Thank you. Unfortunately, a lot of what was supposed to be happening wasn't happening. So, like the pre-notices that go out monthly with all the forms and everything like that, you have to take the time to actually make sure you're grabbing the correct report or accounting, proof of service, put a nice little note or letter with it that's pre-printed. And I usually double check in the system too to see, make sure that they are up to date. So that's often where I catch things, if it's for some reason not picking it up on a report. So there's certain things, like the judge was saying, that weren't being done in order to prevent that backlog. So we're still, I'm trying to think.
It's really hard to tell, but when I was here last year and maybe earlier this year, I raised concerns that the fiduciaries weren't being monitored, and we didn't know if monies were being embezzled, hopefully not, and we haven't found that, or that wards were being taken care of properly. So I had the ethical and legal responsibility to report this to the state court administrator's office, and we have a regional director, Jerry Cole. He came down, spent half a day with us, and what he actually recommended is that, because of what we were telling him, he said, you probably need to go through all of your files.
Yeah.
Because there's probably, and there have been, right. It's like, whatever that is. And we haven't had time to do that. So we're catching things as we catch them. But,
Although Judge doesn't know that when she was on vacation a couple weeks ago, I did close 3 boxes.
oh, okay, all right, thank you.
We're
So-
trying.
So we're, there is more work that we could be doing and that was recommended, but we just haven't had the time.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to tell. It's the mess from the past or additional work because it
Right.
wasn't done in the past, but legally should be done.
And
I'm not
garden,
saying don't do the work, I'm trying to say, how much is there?
Yeah.
Do we want to increase, our head count for just a period of time, that's a temporary thing, or this
Well,
is gonna
I-
go
I
on
would
forever
say-
and ever and
I
ever?
would
It
say-
doesn't sound like it, you
Yeah, no,
got people that are making progress here.
I would say even if we were able to clear up the whole backlog, because there is additional work that should have been done, that is being done now, there is still more work. But I don't know how to say it. It wasn't done in the past.
Yeah.
It needs to be done, and it takes more than one full-time person and 2.5 days to get that done. And regardless of who the employee is, he or she has to be trained, and with all the work Chris is doing, there isn't enough time to do all the training.
Yeah.
So it, just kind of keeps
Vicious
going around.
circle.
yeah, and
So we
then
think
also
4 days,
just to have an individual retain that when they're part-time, can be difficult, I mean, she's becoming an expert on some things though, which is
Commissioner
exciting.
Russell, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Congratulations on catching up.
Oh,
on that.
thank you.
When you complete your training, and when you're done with the backlog,
Yeah.
would you still need those hours? Or is it an issue of catching up and getting the training and then?
Sure. So I do feel that we would still need those hours. There are things such as, she did, 4 hours of court reporting just last week. There's certain things that would pull me from what I'm doing, and it's difficult to be the only one to greet people, answer phone calls, process, all of the paperwork. And there's certain things, like the judge was saying, that weren't being done before. I noticed when I came on here, it seemed like, wow, there were a ton of guardianship reviews, that volunteers went out and reviewed guardians, and their guardianships, these wards. And that's supposed to be done on a regular basis, every 3 years. And for minors, 6 and under, it's every year. Well, those weren't being done. There's just, I guess I should, start a list, but there's so many different aspects that.
so during
weren't-
certain weeks, in Deputy Probate Registrar's job description, this person is to be our court recorder. And it's rare, but it does happen that I have a full day or 2 full-day hearings, a divorce trial. We set aside 2 days. So she's pulled into the court to sit with me and to, do all the requisite logging under the law, which wasn't being done before. She's not at the window, she's not doing other work.
Yeah.
And, so I think I think we will need the 4 days. I think we could probably make a case for a full-time employee, but we understand that, this county's not made out of money, and we're trying to, be as efficient as possible. So an additional day and a half is what Mr. Povolo and Ms. Mattis and I decided to ask for.
Commissioner Russell.
Yes, I have a couple questions for you. As you all are fully aware, this year has been with COVID a great disruption to our normal processes. So my question is, did we have employees working during that time in the building, working on the files during that shutdown?
Well, Chris, more yes than no, but then we were able to secure a laptop from another office, and then Ron was able to set her up that she could do some work at home, but she was here.
Yeah.
The other workers, until, the courthouse really reopened in June, they were coming in, they were working from home. I mean, Josephine was here more often than not.
Rachel
I was
did.
doing Rachel, and I was doing my hearings from home, but it was also coming in. But our other caseworkers were more or less doing their work from home and filling out daily work logs for Mr. Poblo to review. So we were functioning, but not always in the office.
But during that time, there was, I would think, a decrease in activity because of the COVID shutdown. Is that not correct? And if so, we really don't know where this is going to go this fall, next year. And I guess my concern is increasing staffing levels at this time when we're unsure that the quantity, I understand you have a backlog.
Yeah.
Okay, but the quantity of new work coming
Right,
into
right.
the department.
Right. I think that, I mean to interrupt, but I think this, part of the slowdown was that attorneys weren't in their offices. But now that more attorneys are returning to their offices, they have their staff on hand, they're playing catch up. And I think, in terms of petitions and the divorce type of docket, I think it's kind of back up to where it was. But, I mean, the attorneys weren't working.
Yeah.
So that accounted for some of this
Yeah.
little slowdown, or even individuals, weren't sure how to do anything, and they weren't sure they could even come to court. So I think we're kind of past that. But whether it's going to return to where it was, every year is slightly different, but I think we're back, especially with the attorney, in most cases, I don't know most, but a good portion of the cases, we have attorneys, and they're back up working and plugging along.
So if I could say,
Yeah.
I actually noticed in the last few weeks an increase in conservatorships. We've had some cases filed by the Attorney General. There seem to be a lot of, individuals, often elderly, that need protection of their assets because we're having issues with a lot of scammers and other things like that. So I have seen an increase on that. Pretty steady on petitions coming in. I think for me, it was a different kind of busy. I was very busy working through, everything, trying to make sure that still my pre-notices went out monthly so that, everyone had their paperwork, had everything they needed to report back to us, because I didn't want any further of a backlog than I already had. But I think, like I said, it was just a different kind of busy, but it's been very steady, especially with those conservatorships coming in.
Well, I guess I'm getting kind of a mixed message from this, because you've done a tremendous job in reducing your load. But then, and that's, that tells me that you can continue to reduce it. And that's really what we need to do. So to add more workers, it's just going to do it faster. But is it necessary to reduce the load? And so, even though I can see you could use it right now, or do we do this as, Commissioner Wessel said, or answer me that probably, did you get this able to reduce it so far because of coronavirus, and you wouldn't be able to if we were in normal situations? Or how did this backlog happen? I mean, I'm not really,
Okay.
is it just people weren't doing their job, or? And now that you're doing your job, you can get caught up on it.
Well,
I'm just.
from my perspective, and I just became the judge January 2019. From my perspective, starting in July of 2019, I began to realize that certain reports, certain duties, the probate register, were not being done. And they hadn't been done for a number of years. So even if we get through the backlog, there's more work that needs to be done on each file that was done in the past. It was, you know, because fire probate was,
Commissioner Susan.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, well, actually, Judge Kromkowski, you were kind of hitting on where I was going. What I'm hearing is Chris has been able to do the backlog because she's staying late nights. And what they're working on are things that weren't done that should have been done, but she's doing it in such a way that she is picking up additional pieces that were not being done that needs to be done going forward. So what it's allowed Judge Kromkowski to do is put in place a process so that our records will be in really good shape. And I congratulate you and Chris for doing this, because you will need additional staff as you've laid out what you need to do. It isn't just catching up the backlog, it's keeping pace with all of the things that should have been done, that weren't done, that created that backlog, and should be done in the future going forward. So I thank you for that, and I hear what you're saying. You do need more help.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's a good summary of what I'm trying to say.
You talked about taking some money from the court-appointed attorneys because, you know, we didn't use it this year, but that's because of COVID, you know? We're talking
Well,
2021 budget.
Okay, but we didn't use, I'm looking at the 2019 budget.
Okay.
We asked for 56,000 total for both parts of the court. We only used 52. This year, even if we're, this year, on one of our budgets.
$4,000 that you didn't use.
From
You know,
family.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, from family.
we're under budget,
Right,
but
and
pretty
it-
close.
Well,
you
pretty
know.
close, but this year, even if, we're still going to have less payments because of the mileage. I mean, Zoom hearings are going to continue. I mean,
There's that
that's life,
indefinite
that's life.
You know, that's what I'm worried about, is what happens in 2021, which is the budget we're working on.
Well,
If, cross our fingers, we get a good vaccine and people start coming back in person, and you start having lawyers show up at the court like they used to do. Granted, it probably won't be as much if the court allows them to continue to do remote, but I don't know what the state's gonna do in regard to that. Have they said that they are going to allow this to continue through 2021? The court? The state court?
they're suggesting that many things really should continue by Zoom because it's more efficient. But jury trials ideally should be in person.
Yeah.
You know, they
Things
issued
like that.
emergency
Right,
thing to
right.
allow us to
Right.
do this,
Just, you know,
but
some will
I
continue
haven't
by
seen
Zoom.
anything saying, oh, we're gonna, this is the new normal, we're gonna do this irregardless of COVID in the future, we're gonna continue to do this. I haven't seen that from, you know,
Yeah,
from
so
the state.
when we had a meeting with Jerry Cole over Zoom, he said indefinitely that the Zoom hearings would be
Yeah,
going.
Okay.
We don't,
So, you know,
yeah.
I just don't want to get into the situation where you steal some money for
Well,
court-appointed funds, and then in 2021, oh my God, things are back up
Right.
to the 50-some thousand dollars again, and
Right.
you know, now you don't have the
Well,
money.
then we're asking for 16.5. I don't know. I mean,
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, but so just looking at 2019, for the family court part of the court, we used 82% of our budget. So, yeah, we had 20% of money that went back to the county, the general fund, or wherever monies go that aren't used. And in the probate world, we used 94%. So, yeah, it is.
That's not, you know,
that-
that's pretty close.
That's close in the probate, but, you know, I don't know,
Can I say?
Yeah.
So I think in 2019 that there were a lot of things that did happen that had not occurred in years prior. So some of the expenses might have been a little higher, such as we did use some court-appointed attorneys to do those guardianship reviews, if you recall, Judge.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I-
I'm just not sure how
Right.
accurate.
I mean, you know, that was a thought that, you know, if, I know, you know, we don't, I mean, you don't know yet the impact of COVID on the general fund and investments and this and that, but in trying to alleviate or lessen the amount of monies we're asking for, you know, I mean, Joe and Chris and I looked and thought, well, I mean, there may be some other places that we could, you know, maybe divvy up, not all the 8,000 from there, but
no department should be, we're not asking any department to say, you gotta come in exactly the right amount, that's unrealistic. I just don't want to see you thinking that, okay, I can reduce this budget line item for court-appointed attorneys because it's down this year. Well, this is a very unusual year. 2019, you came pretty close. I'm not sure you want to reduce your budget for court-appointed attorneys.
Well, then something else that maybe you want to pose back to us that, we're not going to approve 16.5, but we would approve, 14.2.
Yeah,
And then we can fiddle around with money, with
Okay.
percentages. So,
And you will be getting that feedback when
Yeah,
we've gone through
right.
all the departments to say, okay, we're this much short, so now what are we going to do? But I'm just.
Right,
I don't
you're
want-
trying to protect us, and we're just trying to say,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions or anything? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put it all in consideration as we do the budget.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And we'll be free to answer other questions or,
Oh,
yeah, or
thank
Mr.
you.
Colo to, yes, Chris is doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Will do.
You haven't run across Jimmy Hoffman.
No, we haven't found it, but we have a couple extra boxes to look
You
through.
never know.
Couple extra boxes, yeah. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
All right, then, do we want to go to emergency management?
Yeah, Matt should be here.
He was in the chair.
He was watching, so I assume he's walking in here. Let's go get him.
He's coming.
He's on his way out. Go get a cup of coffee.
Me too.
I got a good idea. Another one. I had another good idea.
All right.
Any questions for the emergency management? Oh, yeah.
Okay. The tower upgrades for the Shabbytown Tower.
Yeah,
That's an upgrade that will only occur if they do something first.
it should be a partnership between the two of us, the county and the tribe, in order to improve the radio reception within the tribal reservation. Concentrate, for this solution. The Leelanau portion of that would also expand our coverage for law enforcement on their portable radios on those 3 towers as well. So that would be our portion of that project.
Okay, I'm trying to understand because I thought, we had some dead zones that we addressed those issues.
Mhm.
These are new issues that have arisen or you've known about them all along and we're just hearing about it.
They're known, they are known. There's always a problem with the reservation area. And some of it has to do with the tribe operates on a different radio platform. They don't use Motorola equipment, they use Kenwood. And you can get differing opinions on which reception is better. We routinely have problems with their patrol on midnights, being able to hear them inside houses when they're in contact with individuals. And it's always been an issue with their fire department as well. What we did in the Leelanau Township is that we had a strong deficiency with fire portable reception. Law enforcement typically can, they like to transmit from their vehicle a little bit more than fire does. So we're able to circumvent a lot of that. But if we put this solution in place, they wouldn't be limited to just transmitting on their mobile radios in their vehicles.
So what's the cost split between the tribe and us? You know, are we asking them to do?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand, you know, if it's strictly a radio problem because of the radio system that they are using, or is it really partially our problem? You see what I'm saying?
I do. It would be best if we were all on the same platform.
Obviously.
But we don't make their budgetary decisions. So if we can put these solutions before them and work with them in order to implement these solutions, that's the ideal situation for us.
I'm struggling with this from this perspective. It sounds like it's an issue with their equipment matching up with what we broadcast.
I don't want you to
Just
focus on that.
reception?
It's different equipment, and if you talk to different vendors, they will say, yes, it's because of that. But in all honesty, every piece of equipment that's authorized to communicate on the MPSCS system, the 800 megahertz, is justifiably able to do that. Why we see the differences is just the practical use of the solution in the field. I'm sure that you can attest to engineers don't always know how best to work on a car, but yet they put the new and improved things in there and it just upsets the mechanics. That's kind of what we run into in the field here with the radios.
To address this problem, is it appropriate to be using 2% funds?
We originally did not want to do that. We brought it before the board. We didn't want to identify those funds and take away from everyone else. So I did have some meetings with my counterparts at the tribe. They were going to pursue some grant opportunities that they would be, I guess, more suited for, being a federal agency. Unfortunately, they weren't able to identify any of those funds, and we were kind of forced to move forward with asking for the 2%.
I'm just struggling with that, you know, because it sounds like this is primarily to address a problem on the reservation, and yet they want to use 2% funds, which is not meant for that.
Commissioner Watson.
That's not my understanding that the Shabby Town Tower is primarily for the reservation. I think the Shabby Town Tower is for much of the Omina area, and it's the one that when you leave Leelanau Township and go to Traverse City, you have to switch frequencies.
Right now, the Peshabi Town Tower is not on the 800 system, so it would not run into play for that. But when they do leave the Omina Northport area, they would be switching to either a Antrim County Tower or a Kalkaska County Tower or the Central Tower, or maybe one in Grand Traverse County.
How much of the Leelanau Township area that we continue to have some problems in is served by the Shabby Town Tower?
Speaking with the fire department in Northport, they're exceedingly happy with the coverage that they have. I have not noticed any gaps. It's not an issue right now. This would just extend their ability not to switch over to another talk group.
You mean I have to admit that he was right?
Sorry.
Painful. Painful.
So the amount that you're asking for, I thought that was the amount we asked for the 2% fund.
The amount that we wanted the tribe to contribute would be $136,840. That would be their portion. Our portion was the $112,080.
Okay. So if it's mainly a Peshabi County problem, why are we spending $112,000?
That is just to extend our solution to the law enforcement side being able to extend our redundancy to 3 towers as opposed to 2. It would help us, no doubt.
So we're offering that as part of the solution, and it will
Yes.
help us besides. Seems like a lot. Any other questions? I mean, this would just come out of the general fund then, right?
The tower fund.
It's gonna come out of the tower
Yeah,
fund.
it would get transferred from the tower fund into the tower improvement 468, I think it is.
Okay, and how much do we, I guess, how much of an emergency is this, or that it needs to be done? How soon?
It would greatly improve the tribe's operation immediately.
Maybe a better question might be is how long have we operated under this system with some success? And then maybe therefore you could answer the question, how critical is this at this point in time? Is that?
Thank you, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, law enforcement's been operating on the 800 system for a better part of a decade.
Better part of?
Decade.
A decade, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so they do try to figure out where those gaps are, put themselves in the best position, but unfortunately it's quite often that we're unable to reach them on the radio for routine status and scene safety issues.
Commissioner Law.
Thank you. That was one of my concerns. So we really do have a safety issue.
Yeah.
It could be a bad situation, especially if you're dealing with domestic. Okay, so you said it was kind of a partnership, so we couldn't upgrade our side unless they do their side, or?
If we wanted to take the
Best to do both
whole,
at the same time.
yeah, it's best to do them both at the same time. Because our portion would primarily just identify the law enforcement side of it. It wouldn't help tribal fire at all.
Okay.
Or our mutual aid agencies going in to help in that area.
So you would be asking for the 112 on the tower, correct?
That's what yes.
And if the 2% does not come through, we wouldn't go forward with this?
I don't plan on moving forward with it unless we get a partnership with the tribe. I will continue negotiations with them, trying to get the conversation to go, spark more interest. We would be able to handle our portion of it with the tower fund right now, even with the other project that we have on the table.
And how would we, Michelle, how would we put this, if we add this to the budget, would we put it in under capital improvements? Or would it be under contingency? Or do we just leave it in tower fund and
Or it's
see?
going to be a transfer from?
It would be a transfer from the tower fund into the capital improvement, tower improvement, the 468 fund.
So how much would it deplete it though, if you're gonna do your generators and all the other things?
In the fund right now, we have just shy of $500,000.
Any other questions about that whole portion of it? And then when you look at the generators, the 2-tower amplifiers, 15,000.
Yes, this, I believe that we've had before the board as well, that I'm trying to pursue this in cooperation with Lansing, with them actually coming up here and putting the equipment on the towers for us. We would be responsible for just purchasing the equipment in that situation. Saves us a lot of money. We'd only be paying about 1/3 of the cost that it would be to purchase the equipment and put it on the tower.
You're talking about the generators or the amplifiers?
The first one on the top of the page, the 15,000, 2 top amplifiers for central tower, central empire.
Yeah. So the 2 existing state towers that are on the 800 system, we have 3 that are in the county. The Boo Guy Road Tower already has a tower top amplifier on it. Central Tower and Empire do not. What that will do is it just increases our ability to communicate on the portable radios. It just helps out of the vehicle radio reception. And partnering with Lansing in order to do this saves us a lot of money. We just don't have a specific date when this can happen. So having the board in support of this project would be greatly beneficial. That way, when Lansing actually has this on their timetable, I can just come before you and say, Lansing is ready, and we can move forward. You knowing full well that there's money in the budget for this.
Any other questions or statements? All right, now we move to the generators.
This again has been before the board before. Unfortunately, we had quite a few other projects that have been taking precedent over it, but this is something that we should identify to move forward with. It will require more than just my authorization to do, but it is a very achievable project for the tower sites and something that we would be able to handle with the tower fund.
Commissioner Angel.
What towers have we just bought generators for?
The newest generator should have been at the Omina Tower site, Generac generator that we are able to hold under maintenance contract with Graham Motor. I think it's Graham.
That's the only one we've replaced recently.
And it's been a few years.
I'm just vaguely remembering this in my pea brain here, that we did buy a generator for one of the sites.
That was 3 years ago?
It probably longer than that. Yeah.
So the generators at all of the sites are suspect, and this is the worst of the bunch.
We would be responsible for generators at law enforcement site, Central Tower, Maple City, and Omina. Northport Tower site is right at the fire station. Their generator backup would be able to support that. The Empire Tower site is not ours. We don't own it, and that's maintained by American Tower. So these two tower sites that are identified right here are the ones that we need to focus on.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wesson.
One of the beneficiaries would be the road commission. Do they make any contribution? Do they have a line item to support communications?
No, there's nothing that we received from the road commission on this. And typically, we don't know that they cannot communicate until until we know the tower's down. We are able to monitor the radio traffic and dispatch, but they're not on it all the time. So when there's silence, it's not always a bad thing.
Any other questions about generators? So we'll discuss this when we get into it. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Mhm.
Were you watching? Trudy. So I've asked Lori Spencer and Trudy to come talk program, and then either Dorothy or Jen talk about the automation fund and what their plans are.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I didn't say anything, it's Melinda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did he say mapping next?
Yeah. Just gonna go get Lori, I think. Judy or Lori, one or the other. saving it for dinner.
You got a big chair.
Just,
You got a big chair.
I assume you like some
those
pizza
chairs.
order?
I do.
Mr. Chairman,
What?
pizza order?
Not now.
Well, no, but you, I'm assuming for the, not now, yeah.
You want me
At
to
some
start?
point, I assume. 2. A deluxe and a finish.
I'm not going to have pizza.
I brought a sandwich.
No,
I brought a sandwich.
All right, well, see then.
I'm gonna take
Maybe
these
we'll
off.
not option B. Oh, sorry. We're here.
Yeah, if you're speaking, you can take your.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hi. So Lori and I are here today to talk to you about mapping requests, and I'm assuming that it's about the aerials, because that's the largest, but okay, I've seen heads nodding. All right, good. Just want to confirm that. So I'll give you a little information on this and what we've done so far as the cost and so forth, and then I'll turn it over to Lori so she can talk a little bit more about what they're used for and the programs and so forth. So we are looking for aerials to be flown in the spring of 2021 through the MI SAIL program, and we always try to get them flown in the spring when the leaf is off so you can really see the ground better, and you don't have that blockage from the leaves, and that's typically what we've done for many years now. The estimated cost for the program for 6-inch aerials is $43,000. And we have had 6-inch aerials for the flights in 2006, 2012, and 2017. Prior to that, it was a 12-inch scale at best. And the scale really does make a difference. I'm currently working on a project which involves the use of aerials dating back to the 1990s. And the earlier scales that we have do not allow me to see the detail that I need on these properties for this project. So it's created a little bit of a problem that needs to be overcome. In the 2021 budget for mapping, Fund 573, I entered that aerial cost as coming from the general fund, and then I entered it as a contractual expense. And there are options that we've been looking at ways to cover the cost. So the mapping fund itself does not generate enough cost to cover these new aerials. There's just not enough that comes in from that. In the past, we have been fortunate enough, we've received some 2% funds from the tribe, and we could put an application into them again, although I think our chances are pretty slim in that area, but we could try that. I've also contacted our insurance carrier, MMRMA, to submit a RAP grant, and I literally got an email back about 20 minutes ago saying they've never seen this kind of a request before, but they would be willing to take a look at it. So I'm planning on preparing that application and bringing it to you next month to see if you would allow it to be submitted to MMRMA for consideration. And what we'll have to do there is show why we need these from a safety concern. And I think we have a good argument, excuse me, we use these through 911, we use the fire departments use them, we've used them to search for lost individuals. We've used them in court cases where there's been accidents and so forth that have occurred, and they've taken the aerials and then actually done some mapping projects. So I think we have a good argument from that area. And then I've also talked with the Register of Deeds, Dorothy Miller, on the possibility of using the automation fund for some of the costs of this project. I talked to her prior to submitting this budget. At that time, it was her opinion that the aerials would not fall in line with what the automation fund can cover. So I explored that, and that's about as far as I've gone with it. It's just some discussion with her. And of course, we'll have a new Register of Deeds next year. So the 2021 request is for the new aerials. That in my SAIL program, they'll need to know by the early part of next year if we are going to be purchasing those 6-inch aerials. And hopefully through this budget process, we'll have the funds in there, and then we just need to explore our options as to how we can get that covered. I should back up and just say under the RAP grant, they'll pay up to 50% of our expense. So it's not a full, coverage of the $43,000. We could get up to half of that.
Is there, I think there's a cap, is there, how much also?
I haven't got that far on that. This would be the most expensive application that I've put in for. Everything else that we've done has been, a couple $1,000.
I think there's a cap on how much they,
okay.
It's not straight across the board.
Okay, I'll check on that. Thank you. And
Commissioner West.
You said that you talked to the Register of Deeds and that she didn't think that would be appropriate expenditure out of that program?
That's correct.
I think the administration mentioned the other day that many counties in Michigan have used those funds from register of deeds to do this exact thing.
Some counties have, I don't know how many.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
maybe
Lori's got more
I've tried
information.
to, I put out a request to other counties. I haven't received back. I can tell you for a fact in Grand Traverse County, when I was the director, I did get funds from the Register of Deeds in my department for a plotter. And if you look at what is done in the Register of Deeds and you think about aerials, I have a picture here of a Register of Deeds with aerials where she's promoting the fact that she has aerials. And it is technology, and it is regarding people searching deeds and that process between that we use, and it talks in, if you actually look at the act, it talks about certifying, which our department does. But it talks about in the Register of Deeds certifying, which a lot of times you're using those aerials to do that. I see an application myself, but
Well, I'd say from a legal perspective, I checked with Mr. Stoker just to clarify this issue, because obviously there's a difference of opinions here. It is possible to use those funds. However, you need to get permission from the Register of Deeds. The way the law is written, it is a decision of the Register of Deeds, whether the funds are allocated. And then if they're allocated, as Lori pointed out, they have to be somehow linked to the Register of Deeds, which Lori said could happen. If you're interested, I've asked Dorothy and Jen Grant to come in afterwards to talk about it. I think last time you asked about, okay, what is their plans for that fund? So they're willing to come in and talk about that. I asked them to come here after you finish this discussion.
the other thing I wanted to mention are just statistics. I've mentioned this before, how the public now expects to find things online. And when recently, and Trudy and I had asked before about getting our mapping system updated to a new program, which we did, and it's phenomenal, the difference in the hits on our site. And we just did a statistic on our aerials since January 1st of 2020. We get 190 hits a day just on the aerials. They're heavily used. And this is a census year, so if you have the aerials that match the census data, I also think that's an important consideration. That's the reason we've kind of tried to do it on a 5-year rotation, is trying to somewhat keep with our census data.
Mr. Long has a question.
Are your aerial hits, are they stationary maps, so they're different than the Google Maps? Or
They're different I tried to explain this to Trudy earlier, we were talking about it. Our maps, you can go into, for instance, you want to look at your property. If you go out to a Google map, the only way Google can do it is they do something called geocoding. So they'll take your address and they'll plop you down someplace, and you got to figure out kind of, okay, where am I? There's a difference between that and being able to go in and look at your property.
pinpointed?
Right.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay, that makes sense. And then you mentioned a 6-inch aerial, and then I think you said a 12-inch.
Yeah.
So, but you aren't asking for the 12-inch scale, you go 6-inch scale?
Yeah,
It's the same that we've had now for the last 3 cycles. They've actually gone beyond that. It's just as planes and the cameras that they use get better, just like in your cell phone, if you get a new cell phone, what do they tell you on your cell phone? Your cameras is better.
Camera's better.
And so it's just a better resolution. Actually now, it's down to 3-inch.
Yeah.
So we're not asking for the latest and greatest, we're just trying to keep it at least where we had it.
You can tell the difference if you're using the aerials and you need to zoom in and see something, and you'll start seeing those pixels.
Yeah.
and a 12-inch scale, you're gonna
12
see
inches
those
maybe 6.
fast, and everything's distorted. The 6 inches much better, and of course the 3 inches even better, but much more
What
expensive.
our assessors would actually like, and you're seeing that now in a lot of counties in Grand Traverse, I think 4 or 5 of the townships have what they call oblique imagery, which is something else. And we could actually do oblique and do a buy-up, but then the cost goes up exponentially, and we're just trying to keep it kind of where we were, but
I don't know if Lori mentioned it on the website with the mapping, that is actually the #1 page that always gets hit. It's been that way for years. So out of everything that people come to the website for, the mapping and the aerials is what they go to first.
in some years, we've been fortunate. Trudy mentioned the 2%, but in 2012, the National Park Service actually donated 53,000, wasn't it, Trudy? I think it was 53.5 that I looked up. They donated. So some years we've had success in grants or donations from other agencies, but it's more and more difficult to do that. We are asking. I mean, that's why Trudy was searching. We hadn't thought of using this other grant before, have we?
No, with the RAP grant, I said, I think we should try it.
We'd love the tribe to
make the
contribute, but
argument
it doesn't even look like they're doing their 2% this time, so.
We were successful in the past with them several times. They helped purchase the aerials. But then after that, we had a few that were, we didn't receive any funding at all.
What do you actually use these for? I mean, are we just doing it for a service to the public or?
No, we heavily use them in our department, and one of the things that we're doing for actually 911, and it helps Trudy too when she's issuing addresses, is we're creating an address point file now. It's in the 911 system, which allows you to actually locate the structure that the address was issued for, much more accurate than, for instance, that geocoding that I talked about that plops you down someplace, but you got to try to figure out where you are. You know where you are. And so we use it in that regard. In our department, just to give you an example, I found a garage that hadn't been on the roll. And my question is, how long has that garage not been on the roll? And one of the things that we can do, because they're every 5 years, is I can say, I know it wasn't on this year, but I know it was on this year. So I at least know between a 5-year period that it went in sometime during that 5-year time frame.
In our office, we have the aerials up on somebody's desk nearly all day, checking addresses, doing new addresses. Recently we've had calls from people using Google, and there's wrong information on Google, which is not our issue, it's their issue. But we can explain to them, we verify it, and then we can explain to them there's actually a button on there where you can submit a correction. So Google had the wrong address on their home, and people weren't finding them, and they could submit the corrections. So little things like that come through, but various offices use them. The drain commissioner for the, high water levels and so forth.
I can see that really becoming big in our county within the next bit, because if you look at your last aerial, and if we would get a new aerial and you look at the shoreline, it's changed dramatically in a lot of, I expect appeals on some of our homes, because it's taken away some of our shoreline. You're not going to be able to know that unless you have the ability to see what it was and what it is now.
Mr. Hanson.
I just want to make a comment that the townships are heavy users, both the zoning administrators and the assessors. I know, at least in Elmwood Township, they use it every day. They are accessing these pictures to assist them in their work. So yeah, we're not getting any money from the townships, but it's not just the public at large. It's the townships are also heavy users of these areas.
Well, and I'm wondering, you're saying the last one was in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do it in 20, that's every 4 years, but I thought we were on a 5-year cycle.
We're doing it in 2021, spring of 2021.
So that's 4 years.
No, that'll be 5 years. Because we flew them in 17.
You count 17 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the state has that set up of the area they're going to fly.
And they rotate there, so if we would miss this flight with the state, we would be 10 years. Or else hope we can get grants from somebody else and don't go through the state, but.
It does save us a lot because we used to have to go through and do these RFP proposals ourselves, each individual county, and then you'd submit it. Everybody had a little bit different specifications of what they were looking for. You cross the county line, you're looking at aerials, now you're in Grand Traverse County, maybe they match up, maybe they don't. This is through the state program, and so it's all done under their RFP, and so they have this nice consistent layer of aerials across the state now.
I still think it's only 4 years. My math just does 4 years. I don't know how you get by.
Well, you count the 17 that we did, then
You can't count, yeah.
18, 19, 20, 21 is our 5th year.
But you can't count 21.
Because they'll count in the next cycle.
That's when we're doing it.
Yeah, but then you'll count 21 then in the next cycle. So it gets counted twice. So 17 gets counted twice.
When the
That's
state,
just my
we're doing
math.
it when the state flies,
It's okay.
right?
Yes.
It's a state math, I guess.
Core.
But, and you think about it, when we actually get it, it's later than that. I mean, they fly it in the spring, but we don't get it in the spring.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You get 2 for the price of 1 today. You like an update on the automation fund?
Yes, that would be great. What else do we have here?
Senior Service has moved on leaders,
Okay.
and Case will be here shortly. Well, planning is, what's the
We
planning one?
didn't have it on here.
No, planning one, I think the only request was for their travel costs. Well, I think Dorothy needs to come up here too. She's not retired yet.
Okay, so what questions do you have about the automation fund?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the first question is, what was the mental processes to say that we shouldn't use the automation fund to help pay for the areas?
Well, there really isn't, it's the state that tells us what we can use this money for. And it says that it can only be used to upgrade technology in the Register of Deeds office, or anything that's maintained by the Register of Deeds office. So the state statute says that's what we can use the money on. We can't use it on aerials for equalization or planning.
So if we said the aerials are part of the Register of Deeds office, it's not a problem.
How could it be?
You don't use them? You have never used an aerial picture? I just saw a picture where you used it in one of your little programs.
We don't have it in our program.
No, you use the aerials to say, we can do this, help you in the Register of Deeds office with these deeds and stuff, because we have access to these areas.
I can just say from a legal perspective, I'm not an expert on Register of Deeds, and I'm certainly not an expert in equalization. What Mr. Stoker said, can it be done? Yes, but there has to be a partnership for that technology and that equipment, and some counties have done that. I think Lori brought up the fact that you're using the maps for, I forgot what you just told us here. So technically, could it be done? Yes, but it has to be a partnership between the Register of Deeds office and equalization, and that you are using the maps, which Lori says your office does use those maps.
But the statute says it has to be, what does it say? Records maintained by the Register of Deeds office, and we do not maintain those
Well,
records.
the first part of it, it says used in or maintained. I think what Jen just read.
I can read it. Upgrading includes the design and purchase of equipment and supplies and implementation of systems and procedures that allow the Register of Deeds to receive, enter, record, certify, index, store, search, retrieve, copy, and otherwise process by automated procedures and advanced technology documents, instruments, abstracts, maps, plats, and other items recorded and maintained by the Register of Deeds. Emphasis added.
So we do not maintain their maps. That's totally something.
Commissioner Law.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if somebody brings to you a deed, say, and they can't say read the description, or, so you don't pull out a map and say, it's here.
No,
here,
we
that's-
send-
We send them to
Some
equalization.
equalization, that's their,
Okay.
I think maybe that's where the partnership comes in that Lori was talking about. I don't speak on her behalf
I
here.
mean, it could be, but.
And that's what Mr. Stoker says, as long as a partnership between equalization and register of deeds, in theory, it could be used, and other counties have done that. They're all probably structured differently. They may have access to the
I've,
maps.
I've,
I don't know that.
yeah, I've queried all of the registers and I've only gotten like 13 responses and most have said they've not ever. So I don't know where Lori's list that she says.
How
Others
much
have.
money is in the automation fund?
Right now, I think there's under 60,000 in there right now. I mean, we just spent, over 100,000 in that, software, so we've really wiped it out a lot, so. And Jennifer's got.
And I
some
do
big-
have plans for that money.
That was going to be my next
So-
question, is there any available, squeeze out of there, but that's not my.
I have this year to hopefully get new computers, and then next year look at getting our digital images into our software. And then a really big project is going to be getting those indexed. Somebody's going to have to do that. So,
Is that submitted for this year,
No.
or 2021 budget?
no, just the computers are.
Any other
She,
questions?
she's just starting, so she hasn't really had a whole lot of, I think I sprung on them that I was retiring kind of quickly, and so she really hasn't had a lot of time to investigate different items that
Let me
she would
ask
like
you,
to do.
Were you planning on doing this in
Um,
2021?
I don't know about, not 2021 probably, but eventually. I mean, we're getting, a lot of feedback from title searchers that they really want more information in the system so that they can do their online searching, so. And it's gonna cost money to do it. We don't have time. We're very busy. Busier than what you guys could have imagined. We're some days 2 and 3 days behind now that we've lost a half a person, so but
Any other questions?
I have to go.
Okay, thanks, Dorothy.
Okay, I have to go get a tooth filled.
Is there anything,
Probably so.
Good luck there.
is there anything you wanted to say, Jen?
No, I think, unless you have any other questions.
No, that was it, so, thank you very much.
Okay,
Do all commissioners know how they get their funding in that fund?
do you know how, yeah, I was gonna say, do you know how that?
You mean the transfer fees?
Well,
No, it comes, there, that again is another state statute that we have to collect $5 for each document that is recorded to go directly into that automation fund. That's where that money comes from.
A lot of transfers. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
While we have a little break, one thing we just found out, we have a budget meeting scheduled for this Friday, which is the 21st, I believe, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I have the sheriff coming in. I have phase 2 and phase 3 of this HVAC project, and then Gary O'Connor will talk about that leak we have downstairs, so that's for sure, which will be some major discussion. We also have a meeting scheduled for the 28th. We just found out the courts changed their schedules, and therefore the Polycom is not available. And with the governor's orders, we can't meet unless with the public in, but we can't do it with 10.
So we're canceling the
Polycom's is not-
28th?
We just found out, I think yesterday, that the judges rescheduled some events for the 28th, and obviously this is their Polycom.
So we are canceling the 28th? Just want to know, because I'm going to take it off my
Yes.
calendar.
So since we're here, do you want to look at your calendar and reschedule? And we have one scheduled for, I believe, the 11th. Is that right, Laurel?
Yes.
Yeah. It's one of the challenges of using the course of Polycom. It's the first time we've had a major conflict.
Yes. So, 28th, we cancel the one at 9 o'clock.
Yes, yes, because we don't have access to the Polycom.
So are we looking for another date?
That's the question. We have one scheduled for the 11th. We want to meet. If we don't meet, that means we're not meeting for
A long time.
almost 3 weeks, yeah. So we should try to schedule.
Did
What about the
everybody
week
look
of the 31st?
What day?
What day?
at 25th?
We talked last week, it seems like several people had conflicts.
Do we want a couple weeks in between the 11th or,
Well, we're talking about having one maybe before the 11th.
oh, before the 11th?
Yeah, because we're meeting this Friday, which is the 21st. And if you don't schedule, that means you don't meet until the 11th, so that's 3 weeks between meetings.
I am open on the 25th.
I am too.
The 20,
25th. No?
Yeah, I think we went through
I'm not
this.
available 24, 25, or 26.
Oh, okay.
How about Monday, the 31st in the morning?
Michelle said that she can check she'll need to grab a calendar from the office
Okay,
because
oh, the courts,
if the
yes.
Polycom is being used, you won't be
Yeah.
able, you'll have
Could
the
you get
same.
that? No.
Did you all come to any dates at all?
No, just go get your book and then we'll,
They were thinking
Then
the
we'll talk.
25th.
because without that book, it's,
Get her in her, yeah.
so the 31st was suggested, right? Is that a Monday?
Yes. Yeah, because I think we looked at the 27th and that wouldn't work too.
Yeah, I think there were, that's why I picked 28, because there were conflicts every day that week.
Yeah.
So
Or we have the 1st, which is a Tuesday.
the 31st or the 1st?
First, I'm not available. The 31st would work for me in the afternoon.
What about the
I'm okay.
3rd?
31st?
How
What
about
about-
31st, 1 o'clock?
Well, I've not 1 o'clock. I've got, the afternoon is booked. But what
Oh,
about
okay.
the 3rd?
The 3rd is a Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
I don't have the first, second, or third of that week.
Cannot do? Pardon, cannot do?
Cannot do.
4th?
Fourth I can do.
Okay. I think I.
So the 4th?
That's a Friday.
Friday, the 4th?
We looked
I'm
at
open.
that, but it was.
Patricia or
No,
Peachy?
That's okay for me.
Labor Day.
the afternoon because of the substance abuse.
Well, we can change the substance abuse if we have to. That's minor compared to this. We need to focus on budget here.
Okay, we looked at this weekend and for a lot of people,
It is Labor Day
Big
weekend.
vacation.
It is Labor Day weekend, oh, yes.
but I'm available for.
The morning of the 4th?
Morning of the 4th is fine for me.
Peachy?
Thumbs up.
Okay.
We can go.
Madam Clerk?
I shouldn't have worked that day. I do have
As of right now, we don't have court, but it's just like the 28th, it just came up yesterday, so
Yeah,
we can't,
But how about the 4th? Do you have anything scheduled for the
I
4th?
don't right now, not as of this
So let's
moment.
pencil in the 4th at 9 AM. Is that the morning, right?
Right.
Okay, so then the morning of the 4th, and the next one will be the September 11th, the following Friday. Pending that we have a Polycom. I'm guessing the judges will not have a session on the 4th before Labor Day. That's
No,
something-
it's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's on the
The
same.
same day you have your board meeting, we're upstairs while you're holding your executive session in here.
I can tell you that the 4th could be interrupted because if they put Leelanau County cases, because it is a motion day, but it's Grand Traverse, so it'll just depend on what the docket flows, but we can take it for now.
We'll just, let's go for the 4th and just see.
We had talked about getting a new Polycom out of this year's budget. How quickly can we get that?
It's on the September agenda. Laurel's getting update prices. The 4th?
I entered it in on the 4th, so we'll see what happens.
4th at 9
9
AM?
AM.
At 9 AM.
Okay. Just want to take a little break now before,
Yeah, because we have time.
an hour and a half. so-
Yeah, do we want to move it up to a later issue for this tomorrow?
We don't have the prices though. I mean,
Yeah.
tonight?
Yeah, tonight.
Well, you could give us, please, is the key.
Okay. Did we already talk about MERS?
No.
No.
Take a break.
Short break.
Casey will be here shortly.
No, we have to have the clerk. They gotta have someone.
I'll go get her.
Waiting for our recorder. I know, we all brought jackets today.
I know, I learned the other day. I work long pants. I think this is maybe my second time I had long pants on also.
We're moving along fast today.
We are, that's what I'm thinking, if we get through with, with Casey, then, and we've already talked about our, the future budget for dates.
We can all go home for dinner.
No,
To your house?
you gotta have the MERS discussion. Yeah.
And I just don't think it's gonna take 3 hours. Well, you can, I know you can make it.
No, I was gonna say, based on what's happening at the last few meetings, you never know how long things are gonna take.
Right, usually not 3 hours.
So I thought,
I found her.
Sorry,
Roaming the halls.
I apologize.
anyway, I didn't know if you.
I do not.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I.
7 looks like an 8 to you?
To stay off of.
I didn't even look
Okay,
at the
so
clock.
2017 to 2021 is 4 years.
Right, I don't know how we.
Well, she counted 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I know she counted.
You have to count the year that they do it, because even though we don't get it sometimes until the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but then if you go the next time, they're gonna count 21 again.
Yeah, you double, by that logic, you double count the year, yes.
Right, that's what I said.
What's got in trouble with the Parks and Rec, because they had a 5-year plan that they thought it actually expired because they counted a year. That was something, right, they're mad.
Yeah, but they had 6 years.
No, that's right, it should have been 5 years, and they,
They had 6 years.
that's right.
Are you ready?
Yes. Let us come back to session here, and then I thought we could have, future dates. Are we just gonna add that one?
Yeah, I think for now, there's just too hard to plan on that. So we have one this Friday, which is the 21st, and then we said the 4th and the 11th. So we have 3 of them planned now.
All right.
We'll see where we are on the 11th and go after that.
Okay.
The state revenue sharing conference was pushed back to next week. I believe it's the 25th. So they're still waiting, which will impact our revenue, obviously. Especially, it's going to be this week. I think today, the 18th, I think is really scheduled for it. Obviously, they're waiting for some type of response from the federal government. And who knows when that will happen. But the original revenue conference now is next week.
I'm sorry, you said we had 3 confirmed,
Yeah, this Friday,
the 21st,
and then the 4th, and the 11th.
okay.
And you should
I
have
missed the
received a
11th.
notice.
What's that?
What time is it on the
You should have
11th?
received a notice.
Yeah, you did, it's at 9 o'clock.
And we'll send out another notice with the amended dates and
Okay.
times.
Commissioner Wessel.
If it's not on my
While we
calendar.
wait for
okay.
Casey, could we switch the agenda and deal with MERS?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say, perfect, yes, I agree. Tony really wants to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Let me see if Casey calls.
Go
Let me
ahead.
see if Casey calls.
Commissioner
We were
Anderson.
gonna, somebody was gonna give us, their best guess as far as today, what percentage we were at.
Oh, well,
Jen was.
no one told me that. I can walk back to the office and see if they got it, but I know we have 250,000, I'm sorry. I know we have 250,000, I believe, tentatively budgeted
Right.
to
But,
do an extra payment.
I was, at the last meeting when we were talking about MERS, we were gonna have an update as far as, are we at 80%, are we at 85%, that kind of thing.
Today is 13th. I can see if I just got a quarterly report. You want me to go check my computer?
That would be good. I think it would be a good way to start it. Everybody doesn't mind.
And you said the 250 in the budget, that's for 2020.
2021.
21, I
Oh,
thought.
you put
No.
2020,
For 2021.
250,000.
Yes.
so it's not in this year's budget, it's in the budget we're working on today. Got it, okay.
Yes, it's already there. I'll go check that real quick and one of us will be right back. Okay? All right. You're still being recorded.
Okay, and then we also, what about for this year? Hasn't been an additional payment scheduled in this year? None at all?
I think just the 250,000, nothing else.
Could you have Jen just come?
You don't like my answer?
No, Jen had no numbers and she's so good at the top of her head. she has.
I'll go get it.
Well, Jen knows this. She did.
It seems to me that I recall us being in the upper 80%.
We were.
Okay, and that's changed now?
I don't.
Well, last
Okay.
week they said it was a moving target.
It is changing
You know,
every time you
you
look
know,
at it.
It is, and we
But-
said that, we know that, yeah.
But, you know,
You asked to be where we were, yeah.
I tire of people saying, well, compared to Grand Traverse County, we're in really good shape. That's not the way to look at it.
I always love hearing that, what?
I hate that. You know, just because they're crappy, we don't have to be good.
Like us both to be good,
The
how about
last
that?
number that I had was 87%.
That's what I thought it was.
That's,
in the high
and
80s.
that's what that we had written down on one of our, goals or accomplishments that the administrator put out.
And from my perspective, you don't want to stop until your head's up out of the hole. You don't,
What number is that for you, Commissioner?
I want to see it between 95 and 105.
That's 100.
And that's where we should be, is 100% funded. We should not be owing money, debt that we don't have not set money aside to pay. So that's where you want to be, is 100%. But, you can never hit it, because depending on when a guy retires or, somebody dies, you don't know when that is exact the amount is going to be. That's why I say, you want to be within a 10% range to say, yes, we have funded our obligation, and, depending on when people die and what the market's doing, we're in good shape.
I can tell you what the auditors and MERS rule of thumb is. Very simple rule. If you're 60% or less, you're in trouble. 60 to 70% is a C. 70 to 80 is a B. If you're above 80, you have an A. That's just a simple rule of thumb that they use.
I want that one for school.
Yeah.
I had that one in school.
I think the other thing that I have heard is, anything over 90% funded may not be the best way to invest your dollars. So there's a lot of different schools of thought on that.
You're absolutely correct. Some people argue you're better off controlling those dollars yourself. You may have other projects, you may have debts you want to pay off early. Are you better, it's like paying your mortgage off early. You can hear different people argue.
Right.
That's just what I was going to say.
You're better off some people argue you're better off paying off your mortgage, use that money for the project. Other people say, no, keep the mortgage payments, use that to pay off other bills, so forth. So you get different people, different meetings. I go to the MERS conference, and there's not agreement there. They have panels, and it just varies from case to case.
Right.
Just like with your family, each case is different. You don't want to pay off your MERS and be cash poor, or you may pay off your MERS, but you have all these other debts.
Well, the
So
problem,
it really is complicated.
the problem is we're never going to pay MERS off. That's the problem. I think the key to this issue, and from my perspective, is we continue every year to pay extra on our MERS so that we don't fall behind a certain number. And then, we have capital available for investment, for, a better return maybe, or other projects that we would have to go out and fund and pay, more dollars for. But, I think that's a personal opinion. So I'm perfectly comfortable with maintaining the required payments annually and putting aside at a minimum the $250,000 at a minimum to stay on top of the problem.
And as you probably remember, some years in November, December, when we have a better idea where we are, you put extra money into it on top of that 250.
Right.
So you have that flexibility.
Right.
So it's hard to tell what happened this year, but 2 months from now, if Michelle or Jen give you an update and say we're in great shape, we're below our estimates, you always have the ability. Some years you actually done it the last day of the year, in December, you have made that calculation. So you have time. So it's good to have a dialogue, but you want to have that flexibility.
Right.
See, and my goal is always thinking that if we can get to 100% or 105, then we can actually start switching over to
Just maintaining.
no, well, not so much maintain as to go to the other system, which, you know, this one is a defined benefit as to a,
Defined contribution.
yeah, defined contribution. So that we get out of that, you know, the having to pay extra all the time and can't keep up, and when the, you know, when the stock market falls, you lose, you know, you're all of a sudden you're way behind, and all of that stuff. Well, I mean, it's difficult, and I know it would be hard to do, but if you can switch systems in the long
Well,
run, everyone's better off.
If that's the objective, then yes, then we would throw more money at that. And once we're 100% funded, then we would, you know, we would have to immediately look at changing the system if that was the goal of the board.
You know,
Because
you
we would
can-
have that opportunity being fully funded.
You can change to a defined contribution system at any point in time. And that, but you have to negotiate it, you know, during your negotiation sessions with the unions. And that's the time when you want to do it. And just like we did with, you know, some of these other programs where, okay, yeah, you know, we're offering, we offer, you know, we want to go to this defined contribution plan. And if you do that, maybe we give you a break today, and that's how we get them to switch over, like you did in the past. And Melinda, you know, you were here when that happened. And it was a wonderful decision you guys made.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful decision.
It was a lot of work getting there.
It's a lot of work, but that's when you do it.
Yeah. That's what we did.
But I think you want to be fully funded, because you don't, otherwise, as Michelle would say, you know, you get yourself in deep trouble.
Exactly.
Because there's not paying into it anymore.
Hello. I just sent you both an email regarding the information I'm going to talk about right now.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
At one time, I think Melinda was here, original, a couple of commissioners want to talk about bonding, to pay off the MERS, and we said that it's a bad, you're borrowing money to pay off.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yes. Most people will tell you bonding is not a good way to go to pay off the debt. For MERS, for buildings it may be, for
You're borrowing money
yes,
to pay off a debt you already got.
yes. And there's no guarantee that that won't change that, so, yeah.
That was just it.
Yeah.
I already have that. Are you going to discuss from over here the money?
You can. What are we looking at?
No, I have that.
I think we're 87%. Oh, wait, no, we dropped.
84.
We, Jen scanned them and emailed them to Commissioner Sutis-Little and
PG.
Commissioner Rettenbach. Is she gone?
She was just there.
She's there.
She may just be listening, because,
She's looking probably for the email that just.
yeah,
got sent.
her, there she is.
Yeah, and I have the email.
Yeah, I got the email also.
Okay, so page number 1 is the actuarial from the MERS report. So your funded ratio for 2019 is 84%. That won't be posted until your audit next year for 2020 financials, but because it comes late in June. So 84% from 2018 of 87%. The second page I sent you would have been page 11. It's called the participant summary. This shows the number of divisions that the county has, as well as the number of active employees, retirees, and pending refunds. Pending refunds typically are an employee that didn't have a 10-year vesting with us or a qualification from another municipality. And so MERS does try to reach out to those people, and basically it'd be their portion that they had paid into, which would be a refund from the assets on hand.
Okay, so on that report, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
on that report, could you just for the commissioners go down here and just tell them which is open and which is closed?
Sure, most definitely. So Division 01 General, this group is actually a mass group of employees prior to 2011, I believe. So anybody that retired prior to that, as well as Teamsters employees prior to 2013, and your dispatchers that were hired prior to 2013 as well. And that is a closed group. POAM, which is your O2, is your road command and your corrections deputies. This is also closed to new hires. Your your code 11 is non-union. Those are employees that moved from the general between 2011 and can be also people within the courthouse if they were hired prior to that year to be able to come into that group, which is also closed. And then number 12 is when you decided were able to change your defined benefit and you went to a B2 with a 2% allocation from the employee. So these are all employees that are hired, and in essence, somewhere depending on the hire date between 2013 and current. Your number 20 is your command corrections.
Number 12 is open.
Number 12 is open, my bad. Sorry, yep. Number 12 is open. Number 20 is your command officers of your road patrol and your corrections. This is closed. I didn't print out, and I can certainly, if you wish to, I did not print out the funding of what these are broken down individually. Because they are different in each division, depending on what that growth is within that division, how much of it is funded or underfunded. So it gives you the grand total of your active employees and your annual payroll, your participants between the 2 years.
So as we look like, say at 2020, we're gonna send $250,000 towards this,
Yes.
will we pick a group, will we pick a closed group, will we pick the open group, or a mixture of?
In the past, Michelle and I have been allocated that task. Our first and foremost priority that we have trying to maintain for you is that open group is at 100%. So it gives you that cost of the true number if there is a small unfunded of what that's really costing you for that defined benefit. And then if there's anything left, then it is spread between the other groups.
So you got an average eligibility service, that's in years, is that how many years average of how many years they've been with us employees?
Where are you seeing that one at? Oh, okay, so these are, yes, so these are your 2020 valuation is taking your groups that you have, and they're telling you that your average age inside those divisions. So your average age for your division number 1, we'll start at the top, is 53, yep. So your average retiree is 72 years old. And then down on through the line.
That's pretty, I mean, I would say that's pretty young.
For retirees?
Yeah.
And then your average benefit service, so it looks as though within that first group, you've got your 15 to 11.
Years?
Yep, average service years. So yeah, your largest group is your non-union. And that would be your clerk, your register of deeds, the employees. Or you're looking at 21 years of service is your average.
Right, so what still stands is 25, or 2550?
2550, yes, is within, yes, that non-union number 11. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what, there could be some big changes in counting in a few years, if that's an average.
You still have 21 active employees in that group.
Mm-hmm.
average age of 57.9.
Uh-huh.
And you've got 11 active employees in the Division 01 also.
But like say, well, we've kind of touched on this before, of your, those, how many are in there? So you got 21, say, active employees, and their average age is 57?
Mm-hmm.
And if we have 25, 50 in place, many of those could, if they chose to, retire today.
Yes,
Right.
yes, I believe Michelle's updated you before. They think that there's almost 10 out of that could leave any day for you if they chose to.
Because then they got some average service, there's a few that need a couple more years, and then,
Okay, we could bring you that list if you wanted to the next
Yeah, the
meeting.
seniority list. No?
I don't need, I don't
Okay.
need it. I just wanted to point out that we had some big changes there. Okay.
And then the last page that I gave you is your reported assets market value, which is page 12 of that actuarial. And this states that there is, for the 2019 valuation, your combined assets of 26,384,862. Michelle's balance that she got at the quarter ended 4/6/30 shows on the market value of 25.1. So we are down 1.1 from the first quarter and second quarter of 2020 versus 2019.
1.1 million?
Yes.
But it could go back up.
Yep.
It will.
Yep.
Do they, in that report, do they indicate what the percentage rate of return is on that, on those? You know, what are we making on those things that MERS is managing for us?
Well, they actually dropped it down to 7.75. But her first report, and definitely Michelle could share this with you. It's public knowledge. Your balance as of 3/31 was 22.9. And then your balance at 6/30 was 25.1. So you went from 22.9 to 25.1 in 3 months.
What I was getting at, we had a previous discussion, what do you want to shoot for as far as trying to, how much should you fund MERS? And
Yeah.
part of the discussion was, well, maybe you could use that money better someplace else, or self-manage it and make a better return. And having that, knowing what our return is on the MERS investments might give you an indication of whether you want to do that or not.
In the future?
Like generally, MERS has been very good. I mean, these.
Over a year, if you look at the whole history of 50 years, because there was a lot of politics, they're overestimating, they're underestimating, and so forth. Over 50 years, they have averaged, it's 8 point something, 8 something now.
Very, very good.
Which is probably better than
It's
we
better
would
than
get,
John's
we would do
doing
doing
now.
it ourselves.
No,
trying to
they-
pick investments.
I think I shared with you, they have a chart showing 50 years growth, the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, industrial.
Yeah, that's what I
They
was
are
trying to get
above
at.
all that, yes. Because they get criticized sometimes, that well, in 20-something they went down and so forth. Well, yes, but you have to look at the average, long term.
But if we, for instance, what they're talking about, if we took the 250,000 and invested it in the tower and were able to get a better return, then that's what
Oh.
they're talking about, would it be smarter off one way or the other?
Oh, I missed that conversation.
Yeah.
Your tower fund is very healthy.
No, but that's just an example.
Oh,
Of us investing money in a way that we make more than the 8% or 7%.
Really, they'll tell you it varies from county to county. That's just an example. Let's say we didn't have a tower fund. But we could put money into MERS, or we could build a tower and rent it out. What's the better option? Well, it may be better for us in Leelanau County, but other counties may need it for someone else. Other counties may have long-term debts. They're better off paying those debts versus MERS. So it really is a county, it's a unit of government issue, really, not just a county. There's no
Yeah, because-
right or wrong answer.
right, because putting up the tower, I mean, you have to guarantee that you're gonna have income.
Yeah, but that's just.
I mean, you could put up a
That's just-
tower and nobody wants to be on it.
I think for me, it was the best way, how can we leverage the dollars that we have?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can leverage those dollars by an investment, say a tower, because a tower works for us, then tower dollars that come in, can be converted.
Right. I would, my opinion would be, and Matt and I had this discussion earlier, if you are able to put up a tower and you're able to get more revenue, your tower fund right now supplements your 911 by $120,000. You could clearly move that $120,000 out of that and make it more towards 911 if you're satisfied with your towers. If you look at your CIP and your towers are fine, you're going to have that steady growth where you're going to have income, then that tower fund now can help supplement your 911. That $120,000 now goes into MERS, and now you have a $370,000 payment. There's certainly many ways. I could go on all day. You could up your tower, you could up your telephone to supplement 911, and the money you supplement 911 with, you put towards MERS, which is about $700,000, towards the dispatch.
I'll give you another example, and just assuming our finances are okay, I believe our bonds on the jail, you can buy it out, I think, 2021.
Call.
Yeah, are you better off putting in MERS or paying that off? So that's.
I think it's actually
It
not.
varies from counties to counties, it varies from situation to situation.
The end of your bond is 2027. So the $350,000 that we pay yearly towards that bond payment in 7 years will now be allocated to wherever you wish to put it. You will no longer have that debt owed on your books. So yeah, you have some interesting things that are coming your way to definitely.
It was a big penalty if we paid it off before 2027.
I don't think it's
No,
not a
there's
penalty.
no savings.
Right, it's where do you want your
There's no
cash,
discount.
right, where's your cash flow to go?
So in that respect,
Yeah. So
right now, why would you pay it off?
Right.
There's no financials, you still pay the same amount.
Yeah, your bond rate is smaller, I think is what John had said, is your amount of your debt that's owed, the percentage is small enough to offset. You could put that towards something that's owed at a larger value.
Any other questions?
Well, I would still argue that we are the envy of many counties and many units of government.
I
With
would
all the
say
hard
so.
work.
Thank you, Melinda,
With all the hard work that you have.
for many, many years.
I'm released? Okay.
Good job.
Thank you. Mr. Casey.
Before we start, Casey, is the corn outside for us? I'm sure you brought some, didn't you, for us?
I wish, should have.
No
It's
corn.
not mine to take, it's actually my brother's, so I got,
Is Corn Peak
he should,
right now?
what's that?
Is Corn Peak right now?
Yeah, pretty much. I think Shimmicks might be done this week, my brother will have a couple weeks yet, Halls will still be going, so.
Well, I drove by your brother's stand, I saw the corn there.
Oh, yeah, he,
Command swap on that.
okay, that's great, thank you.
Just to help us understand.
Okay,
I thought you were zooming in at 4 o'clock. I didn't realize you were going to actually come and see us.
I'm done with the Zoom.
Okay, well, good, good for you.
I don't mind, I didn't mind it for a while, but it's not easy. And most of the time, my wife's been doing a lot of Zoom meetings, so it's been a hectic summer with the Zoom. Trying to keep kids separated from each other doing meetings, it's not easy.
Cats. So we are,
Parks and Rec.
we are in the one parks. but what page-
$45,000.
What page are we on? We're page 71. Okay. Or,
Yeah, 71 is where I should.
so,
It is. Is that your handwriting?
No. I wish.
So I guess in this, we're talking about the $45,000 that they want to improve Veronica Valley.
No.
No, that's our capital improvement budget.
That's your capital improvement, that's what the 45,000 is for?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's what it's been here for the last couple of years.
Okay, and so that was, the questions were about that, and I guess.
Out of that 45,000, it's a unwritten agreement, I guess, that we would roll 10,000 back into the general fund towards the Veronica Valley, which we've been doing for the last few years. We've let at least the 10,000 roll back to you guys, or back into the general fund to go towards that in case were successful with the grant. And we're ready to do that again.
All right. Okay, I'm a little confused here because, you know, this write-up here says that, you know, Veronica Valley gets 15,000, Old Settlers gets, I don't know what it is, 15,000.
But yeah, I had set it up to base.
Parking was 15,000.
Yes, I had it adjusted to where it's 15,000 for capital improvements in each park, barring that we don't are not successful with the grant. I wanted to have something to look at and not just have 15,000 or 10,000 laying around. Obviously, we're not going to probably have all those projects set up at one time. Just something that we had talked about as a Parks and Rec board, how we would spend that money if we were not successful.
If I can be clear on this, what you're asking us to do is allocate how much money towards the grant? 45,000?
No, 45,000 is towards our capital improvement budget. And when I did the budget, we had looked at breaking that up, the 45,000, and targeting each park or finding a project that we could use or that needs to be done there. And the project at Veronica Valley was the bathroom improvements. Barring that we don't get the grant, we need to start moving forward with some of these projects.
So say if if it were granted us 45,000 for 2021, we find out in September we're successful, then right away 10,000 of this would go for.
It goes right back. I mean, we're not even looking at 10,000.
Right. So then we would say, excuse me, we'd say, okay, let's do the 15,000 for the equipment for the ponds. We've been paying, so 15,000 for the grub shack improvement and 15,000 to start the walking trails. And then we would say, well, we still have 5,000 left. Let's do a little bit of playground equipment.
Correct.
Or, yeah, all right. Make sure we all understand. It's a very fluid budget because we have
there's a lot that we can do and need to start getting done and not,
exactly.
you know, if the grant doesn't happen, we need to.
We need to get some stuff done. It's
Correct.
just been floating for a number of years.
And the grant, you'll have a approximate idea next month?
Yeah, in September, yeah.
So even probably before we finish up this budget year?
Correct.
I mean, this budget.
Yeah, we'll obviously have a better idea.
Before October though, we should have a better idea whether you're in the final stages of getting a grant or you're.
Yeah, yep.
Because they give you a point, they give you a rating.
Yeah.
So you'll know.
When that comes out, you basically know.
So you'll probably know before we finish the budget process.
Yeah, most likely.
But that being said, I don't know what that would impact the budget because we're still going to ask for 45 because we have need for 45.
Yeah, but it may impact how you spend that money.
Yeah,
right.
for next year, yes. It might shift us into a different gear of actively soliciting bids for a project next year or
Well,
what have you.
that and then, of course, comes the decision of the board to say, okay, you did this hard work saving all these years, so since you are awarded the grant, we will go ahead and backtrack some of those dollars we gave back. So that's, as far as the budget goes, that could be the only impact to the budget. Am I reading that right, Madam Clerk?
Are you saying that the way this is presented, if you're awarded the grant, you need a $30,000 match, and in addition to that, you're also thinking there's $45,000 worth of other projects that you need to do?
That's what I'm saying.
So it's 75 in total, but 30,000 is contingent on getting the grant.
Correct.
But this 45,000.
We need anyway.
You need anyway.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's in the budget, proposed budget, it says, included, it says. Right, Jen's not here.
Jen's not here, it says included.
So that means Jen did include that.
Oh,
in
we
the
included the
proposed budget.
45,000.
Yeah,
Not-
45,000.
But not the additional 30.
I'd have to go look at that page, correct.
Correct, yeah, that's
Not
correct.
included.
Commissioner Ansel.
The weed control for the ponds.
Yeah.
It says we can't find anybody to do that. Is that
Is that an environmental thing that you're not allowed to do it anymore?
No, it's finding the person that we had doing it it was basically on a volunteer basis for the most part. And they had some homemade rig that they used to do it, and it's very labor intensive. And basically they retired from doing it. And finding someone to do it in that fashion, no. We can have it chemically done, which is what we resorted to this year, but it's costly. And if we had the equipment and we could do it ourselves, that's kind of what we're looking at.
Are you looking at like harvesting equipment to?
Yeah, it's basically a big hedge trimmer that goes under the water and cuts them off. Just because the DNR, working with the DNR and doing the Kids Fish Day, they're not real keen on the chemical treatment. Right. Not that it's not safe, but it's just a chemical treatment.
They don't like it.
Yeah, so the mechanical way is the best way of doing it, but getting anybody to do it that way is not possible at this time. I mean, maybe somebody will come forward at some point, but they're not gonna do it voluntarily.
No, but there are firms that this is what they do. They go from lake to lake to lake with their big equipment, and they harvest, milfoil, and they.
There is, yeah, but once again, it's a cost thing, and that's if every year we're paying $5,000 to do it, and we can get the equipment, up front and do it ourselves and save us in the long run, that's something that we are very seriously considering.
Somebody looked, and this type of equipment is available on a smaller scale that we could.
Yes.
And operate ourselves?
Yeah, Scott's been looking into it, and Dave Barron's also. I mean, Dave's basically the proponent behind all that and up on top of all of it. But yeah, we've been looking at it for a while because it's been kind of twisting arms the last few years to even get them to do it. And getting the labor to, cutting the weeds is not the problem. It's raking all of the weeds in and getting them removed from the pond. And then doing it multiple times a year. I mean, normally they did it once before Kids Fish Day because that's when the weeds are most affected. But then by the end of summer, it's just a weedy mess again. And trying to keep that trimmed down, we could do it maybe multiple times a year if we had our own equipment.
Is this an ongoing problem?
Yes.
It's a perpetual problem.
Yes. And it's not something that's going to go away. Even with the chemical treatment is very effective. We've done it on our own farm pond, but years down the road they come right back. I mean, it doesn't it kills them for a little while.
Right. How does the chemicals affect the fish?
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, there's a few days where you're not supposed to eat them, I guess, but it's safe done. If it's done properly, it's safe.
And there are companies that do this. I know of lakes in the area where the Lake Association pays this company to come out and chemically treat. They use areas that have the milfoil, and they post little signs saying.
It's not a real great good faith gesture working with the DNR on the Kids Fish Day we're trying to appease them so that we can keep a good relationship and kind of keep that all in the works. Because they do help us out a lot with that event.
Can I just ask a question? So there is, the 45,000 is under there, it's carried forward, again into 2021. You have 45 in there this year. Any of these projects on this list, anything you're gonna be able to do this year or not?
No, we've got, we're doing the grub shack, but the grub shack that's on there is the one at Miles, I believe, if there's one on the list.
Right, the one on here is for Miles. You're doing the one at Old Scott.
Yeah, which should start taking place next month.
There's just been nothing expended as of June.
Right.
No, because
Will come out of that 45 though, the old settlers?
for this year,
Yes.
yes.
Right, and that already had board approval, that was from that's.
Yeah, it's just been rolled over or delayed due to
There were
coronavirus.
no expenditures yet, so I didn't know.
Yeah, that's 28,000 and some change, and then we were gonna have Deering's, after they logged that at Miles Kimberly, they left a mess. And it's gonna be a costly cleanup, which I haven't talked to Scott to see where we're at on that, but we have a meeting tomorrow.
The trails.
Yeah.
Up in the trails.
Which will most likely expend most of that budget.
So this 45,000 is already included, that's your capital layout for, to normally put into the park and rec budget. The other thing is the 30,000 then, with that, and that's for the the grant, and that would have to go, what, into contingency?
We would have to pull from contingency, but that's contingent on,
Receiving the grant.
and I think that you have to accept that grant, because you were still in discussion about that.
Whether you're going to accept it or not.
As you would with any grant.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm saying, do we plan for it in the contingency, or don't we?
Well, it would be better to hold that funding in contingency, because if it's granted this year, is it a payout in 2020 or 2021?
2021.
Okay, so we'd want to leave it in contingency, we don't want to set it in this, just
That's
knowing
what I
that we
thought,
would.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that, and so, you know, so I think those are the things that we really have to look at and decide when we get to the final decisions about the budget.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems like every year, there's the 45,000, but it doesn't all get spent. It's just invariably,
And we do,
you don't seem to have time to get all the projects done you want to do.
no, and there's a ton of projects that we want to get done. But just the process, I'm learning this and learning the ways of it all working, but you basically have to plan a year in advance. And you have to, you know, now, I mean, we can't really plan that much until you guys are done with the budget so that we know what money we're getting. So that leaves us, you know, November, December, and then to go through the whole process of going for bids and making sure the contractor can do it. And then getting all, you know, making sure the contractor has the right insurance and all that. It's.
Well, it's only because like you have the Miles Kimberly Grub Shack on here.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, I went and got a mason to do the footings and, you know, get rid of the stumps that are underneath it and put a new roof on it and new siding, because it needs all that, and the floor is crooked.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's.
After we got the prices, they said, you know, we don't want to put much into this building, you know?
And we, you know, that's a.
It's just used for storage. I mean, it's.
Correct, yeah.
We don't use it for anything else.
If we may, I mean, the decision could be made to remove it. That's not necessarily out of the question, but it's been.
Does it have historical value? Because we went through this with the barn.
Well, the barn deal, I think, worked out good for all of us, but,
I don't think they're gonna take the grub shack.
yeah, I don't think the grub shack isn't any, I don't think there's any sentimental value.
Historical society somewhere.
We move it over there by the barn.
And even the grub shack at Old Settlers this has been a thing since I've been on the board. I mean, it's taken forever to get there, and even, you know, now that with COVID, it's delayed it even far, you know, it'll still get done this year.
Well, the challenge is all the contractors are busy. So
Yeah.
By standards, very small projects, so they don't want to bid on it. If they do bid, they give us a large number, hoping they can hit the jackpot on it.
Yeah, and there was one other bid after we had gone out for bids for that. Nobody bid on it. And there was one guy that called me like 2 weeks later. Oh, I see you didn't get any bids. Can we give you a bid? Yeah, that'd be great. And I had talked to my cousin, and he had kind of given me a rough idea. And he came back when it was at $62,000. And that was just, and they're just, yeah.
I'll do it for you.
And that's kind of, I mean, with these small projects, that's what's, you're exactly right. Everybody's busy and.
If they're small, and it's time-consuming projects too, so they'd rather be working on other major projects where they can make substantial more net profit.
Yep.
And have a crew busy versus small projects.
Well, and I think this contractor, the 68,000 was probably a fair bid, considering I think we're getting a really good deal through the contractor who's committed to this. I'm just feeling the vibe that he's got some emotion.
His arm's been twisted.
Yes, I have. That's a good way to put it.
That's a good way, yes. Well stated.
But yeah, looking forward to getting that project done. And we have a lot of stuff to do. It's just, you know, in meeting on a monthly basis, it's, you know, it's a difficult deal to get it all orchestrated in a year's time, and even 2 years. It's
Right. Well, I know, because being on it, I have for quite a few years, it was really.
And
a
it
lot of
gets.
work for you, just to get it organized.
Yeah, and it gets
You're
frustrating.
busy this time of year too.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's all good.
Right.
The process is cumbersome. That's Parks and Rec's biggest.
It is, and then, you know, even.
That frustration maybe.
And even getting through all the governmental hoops. I mean, not that they aren't necessary. It's just getting navigated through everything, getting even the contractor, getting the right paperwork, and it's been I see him a lot anyways, but talking about this for quite some time now, so.
Well, it sounds like there'll be the 75,000 total, you know? I don't see
The
that
grant
there's-
comes through.
If the grant does.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but I mean, we'll have to put it in contingency.
Well, we could be talking, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
we could be talking 65,000. If we were successful, well, we're not gonna have 10,000 left this year probably with the cleanup. I was gonna say, if we found out in September, you know, we would, I'm talking 2021, would we roll, from the 45, would we roll back 10,000 towards the grant if we're successful for 2021? So we might be just talking additional 20,000. I think Parks and Rec would say, well, we'd really prefer that this board match the full 30, so we can continue projects at the park. But, so we're talking somewhere between 20 and 30,000. Is that a fair statement, Casey?
Yes.
For next year?
The bucket is not endless.
No, and we all understand what's going on and what the situation is, so it's not, but it's our job to advocate for what we can get, so.
I understand.
And that being said, 45,000's been our ask for a number of years.
Yeah, and last year, I think we asked for a little bit more, but it's fine. I mean, 45,000 is a good working number for us. We can get a lot done with that. It's just getting it organized is the biggest issue.
Were there any other questions? Sweet
Good.
and short. Sorry to make you come all the way here for that.
That's all right. I gotta pick my son up by Sugarloaf anyways, so
All right.
it's all
We
right.
have a good chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Obviously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was good to see all of you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Hope the harvest goes well.
Yeah, took a break from it to come up here, so it's going good. We'll be done with hay tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Have a good one.
All right, so then, that's that. And are we through with MERS then? I think we are. And then, do we have anything else for review of revenues and expenditures?
Who's up on the next meeting?
We have for sure the sheriff
Gary O'Connor.
and Gary O'Connor and 3E Kirsten to talk about potential phase 2 and phase 3. Those are some big ticket items there. And then you talked about, and I haven't included them if you want them, in the future, we talked about potentially the courts, and I believe we still have not received the budget from the courts, correct?
I have not seen that.
And potentially the health department. I think Jen is up there in the health department budget. 'Cause I think last week she announced their increase was 1 point something, but that's not.
It's very low.
It's
Yeah.
low, but I think that we're good with the number. On the courts, last I talked to Carol, and I can confirm it, I think she was waiting for some numbers from Grand Traverse County. And I'll be happy to call her today and report back to you on Friday on that one.
And we're supposed to have that joint meeting also.
But that is just district court. That
Yes,
doesn't
yes,
set it
but
up as a
that's,
circuit.
but the 3 administrators were supposed to meet. Carol was supposed to set up a meeting for the 3 county administrators to talk about their deficit, but that has not.
For this
occurred yet.
year.
For this year, not much less than next year. So do you want the health department to come in or not?
I don't know of anything, you know.
What have they, let me go to them, I haven't read their request yet. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Susan had her hand up.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I raised that, but I was thinking of the early childhood village, and we're going to have that as a separate thing. So I think after that, their increase was so minor that I don't know that we need the health department unless someone else wants to see
Yeah, it was 2% or some.
Yeah, it's
Small amount.
very small.
And the whole childcare or early education, that's a separate, that'll be on your September agenda.
And that's separate funding anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Peachy just lost connection. Are we gonna continue or are you pretty much done? She wants to know. Because she can try to dial in.
Yeah, I don't know that we have anything else.
I think we're done for today.
It's up to you.
Any of you want to go on anything else? Got anything else?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Then we go to public comment. please call in at 231-256-8109. It's 231-256-8109. We do have another presenter here, Laurel.
I think she's just observing.
I know. All right, hearing no phone, we would go on to commissioner comment. Any comments? It was a very good session. I think we learned a lot, but we've got a lot of things I think we're gonna end up adding to the budget.
Jen, you said that the state pushed back their date?
To next week. I believe it's now set for the 25th. The state revenue conference, state revenue sharing conference.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
I was part of an administrators meeting yesterday, and several counties have decided they're gonna not even start the budget process until the state and federal government decide. Which I think we're doing it the right way.
So much of their funding, they're contingent on that? To wait? Why wait?
Well, they want more of the free money. That's it, then they can make their decision.
We are adjourned, right?
Yes, we are adjourned.
We're still on.
Yes,
That's
well, we
okay.
may not, the YouTube was not working, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
We had some technical problems. Anyone staying or y'all leaving?
I can go home.
So can I.
So we're all going to Will's house? Is that what you just said, Will?
What's that?
You said we're all going to your house?
Does Carol know this?
I can know.
Yeah, what's for supper?
Yeah.
We'll call Carol, tell her we're coming.
Yeah, well, she's not even home.
Oh.
She's working.
Get the grill.
You're cooking then, well, what are
Get the
you making?
Grill some hamburgers, do you?
All right.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, see you for the next round. I'll be here.
Oh, she's at the Dyslexia Association now. She's back at work.
Oh, she is? Oh.
Yeah. They're tutoring still.
Yeah. Do you want to talk to 7-4? She texted me right here. Okay, I'll just give you an opportunity.
See you tonight.
Paying off murders, aren't you?
Oh, not at all. I think you need to. It's a debt that's not going to go away, but whatever your comfort level is as a commissioners is what we have to work with. But, I mean, you don't want
I
it
have less comfort than some people.
you don't want it to grow and get out of hand, but 84% is
Goodbye, see you shortly.
When I look at it and say, that's still millions of dollars.
It is, but remember, even if you paid it all off and took all of it and paid it off, it would just be for that moment in time.
Yeah, but, that's why I said 95 to 105, let it bounce around in there.
And there are some downfalls to being 100%
Laurel?
paid off.
Could you send tonight's information to Peachy again? She may just call in versus Zoom.
Oh, I just didn't know.
I told you, she's having some internet problems. It's on her part.